Hello, travel biz owner. Welcome to my corner of the travel industry, the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast. If you're ready to have fun, be inspired, get clarity, and take action in your travel business, then you're in the right place. Let's jump in. Hello, welcome back to the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast. I am super excited to have you here for another episode this week. I am a little salty. I have to start off this episode saying that I'm a little salty because I was reading that people don't like the word entrepreneur, and I'm like, that makes no sense. Why people wouldn't like the word entrepreneur? And then I was like, do I have to clarify what this podcast is about? Because I think they don't like the word entrepreneur because there's a certain group that's using that word, but they're not really entrepreneurs. So just to get it all out in the open, I, Rita M. Perez, the host, the founder of the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast, created this created this podcast for people who own travel businesses and who want to run a functional travel business. If you look up the word entrepreneur in the dictionary, the simple phrase that you're going to find is entrepreneur means business owner. Like, this podcast was never created for hobbyists, people that are wanting to do a little side hustle here or there. This is for people who like to have fun and just happen to also be business owners, but also take their business seriously and want to be running profitable businesses and want to be generating income and revenue and a lifestyle, and the business that they have supports that lifestyle. So if you're just here, you just want the perks of being in the travel industry, this is not the podcast for you. That's not the vibe that I'm trying to cater to. Am I a fun person? Oh yeah, I'm a fun person. Me and my little puzzles here and there. And I don't feel like all business should be serious as well. But I'm not here for people who are not wanting to treat their businesses seriously, or for people who say things like, I don't want to make money with my travel business. Well, barf in my mouth. I'm not here for that. I am here to not only share tactical things that you can do to make money in your business, but also give you a boost of confidence, tune out some of the naysayers. Like, I got a message this past week about the audacity that a host agency, this must be a smaller host agency, has to send out emails saying, you should just be a sub-agent for my host agency because the industry is so inundated with travel advisors that you're probably not going to make money on your own. Go flip yourself. Don't you if you're one of my listeners, don't you dare ever say that to another travel advisor in this industry. And two, if that's ever been told to you, go tell that person to flip off, because there is plenty of opportunity within this industry as long as you're willing to work for it and be a business owner. The other term that I was hearing was a weird term, was like CEO, and I'm like, again, I feel like certain terms are kind of being tarnished by people who don't have like really great intentions behind it. Whereas, if you talked about the CEO of any business, like if I talked about the CEO of, I'm trying to think of a business, like the CEO of Macy's, that's not anything controversial. Like, they have CEOs. The CEO of other businesses are also like, that's a normal term in the business world. So I don't get why people are irked by these terms, but I don't want you going back. Like, do not discourage anybody from being in this business. Being a business owner is hard, and it is not for the faint of heart. So if you don't think you have what it takes, maybe you do some like introspective and do an introspective audit of yourself. Because if somebody else on the outside is saying this to you, that you might not be cut out for this, I would first really see what's the motivation for them to say that. And if that's because they want you to be on their team or they want you to make them money, go flip them off. No, we are not here for that. Speaking of, this is something that I wanted to also mention in this. I know we're talking about like a couple random things today, and then we're going to get into the meat of it. But this is something that I've been wanting to discuss. And many of you know, like I have friends who are in the hospitality industry. So kind of like a cousin or a sister in our industry. And they're personal chefs. And they did a lot of theme park, because I don't want to say, but you know, the one that has the mouse, they did a lot of menus, and they did a lot of things. And the mouse has decided that a lot of these small businesses that do a lot of things on property are not allowed to do those things on property anymore. I'm trying to be elusive because I don't want to get in trouble with the mouse either. I mentioned that if you are a travel advisor who specializes in trips with the mouse, or anybody else who might have intellectual property, trademarks and all that, just to be very careful about the terms that you're using, because I wouldn't want you to get a cease and desist like my friends had gotten a cease and desist, and many other small business owners. Now, this is not transpired into the travel industry side. This has affected more like, I think, massage therapists, personal chefs, and like other small businesses that maybe you have used for your own clients. I'm just relaying just to be a little bit cautious about the words and the terminology that you use in your own marketing, if that is a big focus for your business. So just a heads up, if you're using like trademarkable type stuff within your stuff. Sorry, like I'm being so eloquent here today. Yeah, just a heads up that House of Mouse might be coming after small businesses, which I feel like, I know it's important for big brands to protect their IP, but and thankfully my friends do more than just that. I just feel like it's ridiculous for big corporations to go after these small little companies, especially since they're not going to do any of that business on their own anyways. So, business and the realities of running a business. So, I was inspired by my notes because I was like, I wasn't really sure what the episode I wanted to put out there today. And if you didn't know, Host Week has been happening this week. And so I was looking at my notes because that's what I tend to do. And I'm like, I'm kind of stumped because there's life that's been lifing. And I was like, oh, this is a good one. The topic of like, what would I do, me personally, if I had a travel business? And it's kind of funny because some of the things that I'm going to mention to you have been on my radar for February. So if you are in need of travel clients for your business, because we're going to go poo-poo to the other people, making sure that you are running a thriving travel business, travel agency, here are some of the things that I would do / I have done this month. The first thing, and first and foremost, is I always go back to the numbers. So if you don't already have access to my free lead generation calculator, I will hopefully link it up here in the show description, because that is that's step one of everything. If I'm like, I'm in a tizzy and I'm not really sure what to do, the numbers, the data are always what kind of like is my North Star when I'm trying to plan things out for my business. So I look at the lead generation calculator because there's a couple different parts. There's personal expenses and professional expenses. Your personal expenses are going to be things like your mortgage or health insurance or investments, whereas your business expenses are going to be paying for your CRM. If you have a business coach, if you want to go on fan trips, pay for conferences, pay for your LLC licensing, your travel seller of travel license, that's your business expenses. So there's going to be a couple different columns based on like monthly or yearly expenses that you have. The formulas are already baked in there, so you don't have to do any math. You just have to put your numbers in. And once you've figured out all your numbers, the math will spit out with what your approximate yearly income goal should be. So you can see, like, does your yearly income goal need to be 500,000 or 50,000 or whatever it might be. You can kind of like spit out what your yearly income goal, so then you can also figure out like what your sales numbers are, because that's kind of what the blend is. Like, your yearly income goal is how much money you actually have to be taking in, and normally I like to say you kind of like 10x that, because 10% commission, which is why I say, like, if you need to be making $50,000, you really need to be selling $500,000 based on like the different commission breaks that you have within your travel business as well. So looking at your numbers is the first place, because you need to know what you need to be bringing in. If you are just like, oh my gosh, I just need to be making money, that is going to be a hard target to shoot your arrow to. Like, you need to have a target, whatever number that might be, but you need to know what it is, because then you can create the plan. Because part 2 of the lead generation calculator is once you've input some more of your numbers and things like your conversion rate and your average sales, you can figure out like how many people that you need to be meeting or how many packages that you need to be selling within the month. And if the number comes out cuckoo bananas, then we gotta switch up. Like, do you need to get some sales training to increase like your conversion rates? Are you having too low of a spend with your packages and you need to up your spend? I know a lot of people who are like, I'm not doing any interior ocean view interior ocean view cabins on cruise ships anymore. They just don't pay enough commission for all the time that I input. I'm going to be focusing more on balcony and above. So that might be one of the considerations that you have to make. But you don't know that unless you are reviewing your numbers. So reviewing what your sales goals, reviewing what your income goal is, so that you can figure out what your sales goal is. And once you have that sales goal, then you're able to figure out, well, what are the things that I need to sell in order to get the number? Not only between like what trips cost, but how many of those trips do you need to sell? And I know, especially if you're a little bit newer, this is going to be a little bit more difficult, because you might not be sure like how much trips cost per se. So if you haven't already, like, maybe start creating like dummy trips, dummy itineraries, so that you know what things cost. And then you're able to say, okay, an African safari is going to cost $50,000 per couple. I just need to sell one of those next month. Because it can be as simple as that. Like, I just need to make one sale for the month and done. I've met my sales goal that I need for the commissions that I need, and also the fees that you might be charging. It could also be that maybe you need to make like 4 or 5 sales for the month. Again, it's all going to be variable upon your business. And this is why I'm kind of fluid in some of the numbers that I give out there, because everybody's business, everybody's lifestyle is going to be much different. Like, what I need in my life is going to be much different than what you might need in your life as well, or what you are wanting. But you need to figure out like what these different numbers are. So what's your income goal? What needs to be your sales goal? What is your average spend on a trip? How many, based on that average spend, then how many do you need to sell in February to get you to what your sales goal needs to be? Kind of reverse engineering, because now once you have that plan, if you know that you need to sell 5 junior suite cruise ship cabins on a mass market ship to make your sales goal, you know exactly where you're going to go to target those types of sales. You know how often you need to go and make those sales. So it kind of like gives you the roadmap so that everything else, like you put the blinders on and everything else becomes so much easier. Because once you know the exact type trips that you need to sell, then this makes your marketing a bit easier, because then you know what types of trips to highlight, so that especially when you're thinking about digital marketing, specifically social media marketing, or whatever macro content that you might be putting out there, you are not talking about 5 different types of trips when you only need to sell like this one trip. Like especially thinking about like that high-end African safari. If you only need to sell one trip, and one trip will make you your commission for the month that you need based on your income goals, why are you also going to be talking about theme park travel or expedition cruises or whatever else it might be in your repertoire? Why are you talking about everything else when for you it might be so simple to call up your contacts, maybe take you 10 hours to actually plan that trip? You need to spend all of your resources into selling that one type of trip. Now, if there are multiple different types of trips, this is where I would evaluate what trip type that you are very well versed in is going to be an easier of a sell, thinking about February. And I'm thinking like, if we think about the psychology of things, a lot of the United States, if you're based in the United States, a lot of the United States is in a very cold place right now. Power may or may not still be out. It is much colder than a lot of people might like or might be used to right now. So they're thinking about warm weather destinations. So where can you send them to, like some sort of warm weather destination, so that they don't have to think about the cold? So thinking about these things, you know who your best types of clients are and what's top of mind. Maybe they love this weather because it is ski season time and they can't wait for their next ski trip. That is not me, and I cannot relate. But you might be able to relate, and all props to you if you can, because that is a very unique and I feel like a very lucrative market as well. So super kudos to you too. So when thinking about that, now you know what trips that you have to highlight within your marketing. Only talking about those types of trips and the people that are going to be planning those types of trips should be on your digital marketing, because you need to start like reframing things. And I'm not even talking about when we're thinking about like you need to have clients booked and signed on the dotted line right now, ASAP, in the next 30 days. I'm not thinking about long-term strategies like blogging, unless you have a really active blog and people are kind of like looking at your blog all the time. I would think more of thinking about digital marketing. If you have a following on your podcast, making sure you're talking about those topics on your podcast. If you have a YouTube channel, making sure you're highlighting those types of trips on your YouTube channel as well. Blogging is a little bit more of a long-term strategy. I would also like make some posts on like your Google business profile. Start talking about those types of trips in your LinkedIn. And because it's not only digital marketing, that's the digital marketing, because that's a little bit easier. You don't have to wait for an event, a networking event to happen. You can just start putting that together, and it can like be on autopilot while you're doing some of these other in-person things, because that's the next step here in my like, we're going to make sure that we can get you some clients in February plan. Look at the events that are happening in February. It's Black History Month, Valentine's Day, President's Day. Like, what are some of those events that might be happening around these either national days or national events or just international holidays? Like I think about Valentine's Day, that you might be able to go to in person, or what might be happening online as well. So I have actually been looking for some networking events in February, because like my big networking event that I did in January was PodFest, the podcasting conference. I don't really have anything lined up in February, and that's something that I want to be doing. Now, I will be hosting, or not hosting, but attending like some virtual coffee chats just to get to know some of the people that I met back in February or in January for February. So that's going to be part of that. That's going to be like nurturing people so I get to know them and see how we can either best work together or I can be a really great referral partner for them. But thinking about events in February, I know that me personally, that first week in February, I'm going to be pooped because I will be fresh off of host week. So I'm not really thinking about doing too much that week. I have a Broadway show that I will be seeing that week, and that's probably the biggest thing that I will be doing in February. I am currently planning like a partnership event for our travel advisor community that second week of February, and it also happens to be my 3-year anniversary with my boyfriend. So just figuring out like fun things to do that week. I may do a networking event that week. I would say probably the last 2 weeks of February are probably going to be better for me to do some sort of local networking event because I also want to meet some local people. Now, kind of looking at my local events, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to be picky choosy. Like there was an event that said something about booze. Like it said like that business booze and something else. It was like 3 B words. And I'm like, really? We're going to like, that might be you. But that's not me. I've never been a big drinker in my life, and if I was gonna drink, I'm not gonna say booze. Like I'm not gonna use that terminology. But that might be the terminology that you use. For me, that kind of seems like a younger. Like I feel like too old for booze per se. But I am looking definitely for like women networking events. If I can do something fun as well, that would be interesting. Like wine tastings, even though I'm not a big drinker, I'm like, oh, this is interesting, tasting new wines. Am I gonna buy the wines? Probably not, but I do like that whole, I don't know if I would call it like, maybe it is like casual drinking or like drinking when you're out and about. I do like the appeal and like just being able to learn a little bit more about growing of grapes and the history of wine and that knowledge. I don't know. I couldn't tell you why, but that's something that I am a little bit of a nerd about, just hearing the history of things. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. There are lots of Galentine's Day events, and this is something that I'm kind of kicking myself because there are so many Galentine business events if you are a woman, and I'm like, I would love to be able to do that. I'm not sure what the equivalent for guys is. So if you know what the equivalent for a guy would be in terms of like Galentine's Day, let me know. But there are some, I might have to see like if I can find a good like, women's networking Galentine's Day event, because that sounds like fun to me. Also thinking about like just volunteering, because again, it doesn't have to be a straight networking event. It can be like doing something tactile. It can be doing going to like a public speaker, because I know like TEDx is something that's actually coming to Orlando, and I have thought about attending TEDx. But the price of that ticket, which is not too expensive, it's just not worth, like, I personally don't see the value. I know other people are going to be like, but Rita, it's me. We're all going to be different. And that's why you have to figure out, like, where are your people going to be? Like, what's going to interest them? What are they not going to be too interested in? Getting really out in that community. And that can be not only that you're attending other people's events, but especially we're thinking, I mean, you don't have much time, but if you're really great with event planning and you already have like really great contacts and a really great network, you might be able to plan your own event, and that gives you even more visibility within your community. So could you plan a Valentine's event for couples and like be able to promote your agency that way? Could you plan a Galentine's event? This, you're also going to have to figure, like, do you have the bandwidth to do this? Like, I'm not telling you to create an event and then like burn yourself out. I definitely don't, because that sounds like a fun event that I would put on together. I don't have the bandwidth to put anything on, at least in person next month. So that's not something that would be top of mind for me, but that might be top of mind for you. Another one of the ideas that, like, if you really needed to get clients or in front of clients next month, reaching out to past clients, either people that have booked with you or people who have been inquiries. That is something, like, do not overestimate or underestimate, the power of personal outreach, because you just never know what can happen. So if there's been somebody that's ghosted you for a while, reach out to them. And I would also do, like, coupling with this, making sure that you're aware of whatever promotions might be out there from any of your supplier partners, if there are promotions, because you can couple this, like, re-engagement opportunity also with some of the promotions that might be happening. So kind of like working smarter with that. And if you do have any of the CRMs or technologies, they can also let you know, like, what are some of the inquiries that kind of have fallen away. And then also what are some of your clients that haven't booked in a while based on just some of the statistics that are in the CRM. But doing that personal outreach. And this is also why it's kind of important to, like, always know what your clients are dreaming about, because if you can do some personal outreach coupled with, there's a really great promotion on an Antarctica cruise or an African safari or the World Cup in 2020 something, whatever year it might be. And I know that this is a bucket list item of your dreams. Is this something that you want to consider planning this year in 2026? I mean, the worst thing that they can tell you is a no. A no, if you haven't heard it a lot, of course it's going to sound like life-shattering in the beginning. But I always love, I forget who was the first person that told me, but the more no's that you get, the closer you are to a yes. And so I always think about that. Now, if you hear enough no's, you're like, I don't think there's going to be a yes down the line. And I've been there too. But I also like thinking about the positivity end of this, where, like, just keep trying. It makes me think of, like, that image of the miner who keeps digging and digging and digging, and then they quit. And they start walking out of the mine where there's somebody else underneath them who is also digging and digging and digging, but they kept going, and then they found the treasures. It's like this little cartoon. And I'm like, you do have to have some discernment between, like, are certain opportunities worth it for you to keep digging, or is it time to put it to rest? If you've not been doing anything to look for clients and be proactive on finding clients, keep going, because you're going to have no's inevitably, but just keep going. Like, I mean, I've messaged hundreds of people before to figure out different answers and all that. And if you have been sending out emails, and especially sending out emails about promotions or blog posts that are very specific on either different suppliers or different destinations or different travel experiences, being able to look at your click data to see who is clicking on what items, so you can be even more personalized when it comes to this type of outreach. So instead of saying, like, hey Alex, I know that it's been 2 years since you took your last trip, saying that, but then also adding in, I know you've been checking out some of the promotions that I have for Alaska. Let me tell you about this other thing that kind of comes up. Or look, I just found this, like, a really unique itinerary that I think you would love because you love this. So really, again, that is what is going to set you apart. Really, this personalized and curated experience, and, like, really knowing your clients very, very well and what their individual needs might be. And they're going to evolve over time. So being, even if they're not booking, still being in touch with your clients to see where their pulse is kind of on things in travel. So staying aware of those offers, engaging with people on social media. So you definitely have to have this multi-channel approach. And like maybe one day you're doing one thing, another day you're doing another thing. But especially if it's like you're in red alert mode and you really need to get clients, you don't want to sound like you really need to get clients when you're on social media. So who are those people that you can start engaging with? Engaging meaning just having casual conversations. And I want to make sure, like when I say this, it's either individuals that you might know that might want to book, individuals meaning like burnt out professionals, or like really big go-getters that you can see are going to need some sort of break at some point in the future. The other part of that I see is engaging with people who have community members who might run events, which means they have some sort of community because they're selling events. And I think about like health conferences, like there's an endometriosis summit that's coming up. While you're not necessarily selling, you are cultivating relationships. And while these aren't necessarily things that might come to fruition, you have to start planting these seeds. So whereas some of these other things are really tactical, like changing the strategy in your marketing, networking in person with people and being able to talk with them, you also have to do kind of like thinking about like, it's not just February you have to worry about. You have to worry about March, April, May, June, and beyond. And if you're not doing other things to kind of like create business within your business, the next couple of months are also going to look a little bit rough. So you always have to be, there's a certain set of things, like you always have to be selling and then also preparing for other sales within your business. And that's what I feel like engaging with social media can do, especially if you're doing it in a proactive way and getting to know people who might have these communities that you might be able to plan group trips for in the future. Because I know that planning your own trips, planning your own groups can be a little bit difficult, especially if you're starting out, you don't have the network, you don't have the bandwidth within you. It is always going to be a little bit easier for you to leverage somebody else's audience where they are the expert in that audience and you are the travel expert. So I was going to say, and they get compensated for that, but not necessarily. There's a lot of nuance when it comes to like planning group trips and figuring out where a group leader might get paid or compensated and all that. So I'm not going to dive into that. That's not the point. That's not the point of today's episodes. I really want to make sure that you are just getting out there, and especially thinking like a business owner, you cannot fail. You need to have some sort of success. And some sort of success might just be that you finally sent that message that you've been dreading on sending, but you know that it could change your business if you did. Getting out there could be like, I need to start meeting new people, but I really don't want to get out of my comfort zone. But getting out of your comfort zone is where things are going to happen. And so getting comfortable with that happening, whether that's like going to the event. I always talk about that. If the one goal that you have is that you actually just showed up to the event, congratulations, amazing, great, you did it. The next time, your goal is that you're going to talk to at least one person, 2 people. The next time, you're going to talk to maybe a couple more people, making sure that you're setting those goals that are attainable, because it's going to help start creating the muscles that you need to create to put out those relationships and really build those relationships that you need, that your business is going to need to be able to sustain and thrive and be a living, breathing entity that at some point you won't have to do or put in as much work, because it just becomes like a machine in the background, because you've been delivering such amazing guest service and amazing client experience that they're just raving about you and the referrals start flowing in. You guys know I am not a big proponent of like not networking at all. You should always have a plan for networking, but you might not have to network as much once you've gotten to a certain caliber and a certain level. So that is what engaging on social media can help you do, is that you're creating these relationships with people, especially who might not be local to you, that you might not normally have access to. If you're able to like create a relationship on social media, that's stealth mode there. That's like super style. I was watching a dog video where like there's this little Yorkshire Terrier, and they trained it to stalk, and then once it got like closer to the stuffy, to like just attack the stuffy. And so you just see it like prowling, stalking, getting closer, taking like very careful steps to get a little closer. That's kind of what we're doing. We're being this little Yorkie doggy being stealth mode, trying to get to our goal, and we've got to be very careful about the different actions that we take, but we've got to keep putting each step forward, each step in front of the other one, because if you are not being able to take constant forward action, then we're going to regress, and then you don't get the stuffy treat at the end. Now, I know, again, this is also nuanced because everybody's in a different phase of life. Everybody has different things that are happening, and forward movement is going to look different for everybody, but there has to be something that like keeps you going and moving in that direction. The last idea that I had here was kind of what I was touching on hosting an event, but I feel like hosting an event is only going to really work well if you are already well connected. So if you're not well connected, that's what you have to work on, is getting better connected. If you are well connected, you might be able to pull in a couple of different vendors to do a quick vendor night in a couple weeks by the end of February, and that can be like your networking event, all in one, and you get extra visibility being the host or a co-host of that type of event. Again, I'm pretty sure I mentioned last week with my PodFest recap, being in the right rooms is going to be so critical for you to be building a business. And I'm so glad that at least like in somebody that I learned from in Canada, she does different women's business owner events all throughout Canada. And I'm like, oh, I need to find something like that, something to find like community with other business owners so that you can learn from other industries, like what's working in their industries for client acquisitions. What are they doing to really stand out amongst their own client experience? What can you bring that into your own travel agency? Those are like the really exciting things, and those conversations are really exciting because you also don't know where those conversations are going to go, because you may not have thought about coming out like from an event like this with a potential partnership for a trip, but maybe you do. Maybe you get some sort of media feature. You just never know. So always keeping your eyes peeled. So the biggest homework out of anything that I want to make sure that you're doing is looking at your numbers. I feel like I've emphasized that enough, but making sure, like, that's step one to making sure that you can get new clients in your books for February. Looking at your numbers, creating a tactical game plan from there. The next big part is getting out there and putting yourself out there, because remember, closed mouths do not get fed. Nobody is going to work on your business's behalf more than you are. So you have to be your business's biggest advocate. And the way that you can do that is by getting yourself out there. Now, I know that that is also not feasible. So again, this is why I add that component of engaging with people through social media and online, because you can build really great relationships that way. Also looking for like, what are some online networking type of groups, because there's actually a group that I'm a member of that I have not participated that actively in. That's one of my goals actually for February, is to get re-engaged in that group. So I feel like part of this is also being honest with yourself and honest like with what you have been doing, and what you can be doing. And like being also very stealthy, I guess is the best way to put it. Like being stealthy and like, what are you going to choose to do to make a difference, and what are you going to stop doing because you are clearly seeing no difference in that type of avenue, that type of marketing tactic or strategy that you have. Let me know if you need any help with this, because I would love to help give you some clarity. If there's like a certain niche or a certain type of person that you want to be connected with, let me know, because I love being able to deal like with tactical examples. And the more examples that I have, the more examples that I also have to be able to share with you. So I hope this was helpful in getting some clarity and then also taking action. Because again, it's not just that you're hearing me and I've just given you a plan of what you can do. You have to do the plan. You have to implement the plan. So I don't know if like you've just written notes in your Facebook app or like a notes app or whatever it might be, but start putting dates. Okay, I'm going to look over my finances on the 31st. I'm going to look for networking events on the 2nd. I found this networking event. I'm going to sign up for it on the 12th. And making sure that things are on your calendar. Like, we're going to make this happen. 2026, we are all going to change out of patterns that maybe have not served us. And this is the first place to start. So I hope this was really helpful for you. Let me know. Send me a message, and I will see you back here next week. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Remember to check out the show notes for all relevant links and resources from today's show. See you next time.